I was first introduced to Indigenous Australia in Redfern in the early 1980s. At that time, I was assisting my dear friend, the late Ted Kennedy, Catholic priest of Redfern, and the indomitable Shirley Smith, known to all and remembered by many people here, no doubt, as Mum Shirl. It was there that I met the people our world had chosen not to see. The homeless, those caught in addiction, despair, incarceration and violence. And it was in Redfern that I learned two important lessons that have never left me. The first was this: if one seeks to be of genuine service to Indigenous people, to make even the smallest difference, one must begin by understanding their histories, their griefs and their trauma, understanding their aspirations. You must strive to imagine the weight of 2 centuries of dispossession. And above all, you must become someone they can trust, someone who can be called friend. The second lesson was about place and belonging. I came to understand the essential position of First Nations people in this country, their country, our country. I came to understand there can be no Australia without their enduring presence, proudly impressed upon the very forehead of our nation. I have tried to keep this insight, this moral and historical truth in mind ever since. In the late 1990s, through Patrick Dodson, I met my friend Noel Pearson, who, as we've just heard, can't be with us tonight. Tanya Hosch was also there. We reminded each other about that this evening. Noel believed, and still believes, that the future of Indigenous Australians cannot rest upon dependency. He saw that the entrenched problems confronting Indigenous communities could not be remedied by conventional policy responses. They required a fundamental reimagining, a new social contract built upon empowerment, responsibility and opportunity, attributes that most Australians take for granted. Yet for generations they were systematically denied to our First Peoples, people whose humanity and agency were held to be less than our own. Now, Noel's concept of empowerment was never abstract. It encompassed both communities and individuals, the capacity for every Indigenous Australian to stand with confidence and purpose in 2 worlds: the world of indigeneity, rich in culture and kinship, and the modern world of education, enterprise, and full economic life. He called this vision the radical centre. It is not an easy path to tread, this radical centre. It requires courage, moral as much as political, and the patience to dwell in that difficult creative space where genuine change becomes possible. And so when I think about Cape York Partnership Group, I think of courage, endurance and intellect. Of the people Noel, Fiona and Nung this evening call the old people. I must say, Nung, that the Pearson oration skills have slipped quietly to the next generation, so well done this evening. The old people who founded the Cape York Land Council and helped drive the Mabo and Wick decisions to the High Court. And I think of Noel himself, his formidable mind, his unrelenting diligence, his capacity to challenge orthodoxy, and can I say politely, his unyielding temperament, of which I have been on the receiving end. He has never sought popularity, and criticism has come from every quarter. From the right, who sometimes refuse to see the structural inequities that have persisted for so long. And from the left, people of goodwill, as Noel once said, people burdened with a kind of moral vanity that too easily resists the hard work of reform. As Noel has observed, and I quote, "If the hard bigotry of prejudice and discrimination is a wall that keeps the marginalised out, then the soft bigotry of low expectations is a prison." Let me say something about government. For most citizens, the state acts as protector, providing education, health, infrastructure, opportunity, and so on. All the good things we have taken for granted all our lives. But not so for our First Nations. We must always remember that for almost 2 centuries, the machinery of state, even at its most benign, acted not as protector, but as overseer. Its paternalism, frequently not at all well-intentioned, became the handmaiden of dispossession, an instrument of control, exclusion, and dehumanisation. Welfare, when introduced in the 1960s to address these wrongs, only entrenched the loss of agency, empowerment, and responsibility. As a result, much of our work in the Cape has meant grappling with government itself, with the inertia of bureaucracies whose good intentions too often perpetuate the very dependencies they wish to cure. Our task has been to reshape that system, to replace dependency with capacity, to replace control with partnership. And through it all, we have held firm to Noel's radical centre, that delicate equilibrium between accountability and cultural authority. Along the way, the Cape York agenda that we've heard about has achieved a great deal. The establishment of that great school, Jarragon College, and the Cape York Girl Academy. The Cape York Leaders Program, over 600 student scholarships. Cape York Employment, the Palmer Language Centre, Cape York Institute, Nakmin Health, the welfare reform processes, the growth of Barmer Services and Cape York Enterprises, Good to Great Schools, and Jarwin, which we've heard about tonight as well. Each represents not only institutional progress, but lives transformed. I've not mentioned The Voice, still perhaps the elephant in the room. So much of the creativity behind The Voice came from Cape York. In the end, the referendum failed, but it did garner the support of 6 million Australians, a remarkable achievement in itself. And there are individual stories that make all of this so very real. People such as Tanya Majan, Troy Simpasani, and Fiona Jose, our outstanding CEO and a graduate of the First Leadership Academy. Fiona embodies the very purpose of this work. Young people walking tall, proud, confident and accomplished, standing at ease in both worlds. And then, of course, there is her outstanding capacity, tenacity and leadership, which I've had the great privilege of witnessing now for many years. I am grateful to those who have shared this long journey, to the board members past and present, to the communities, to the professional firms like Baines, BCG, McKinsey, and corporate partners, Westpac and others, and to those whose wisdom and generosity have sustained this vision. Many of you are here this evening. People like Richie Armat, Marcy Langton, Gerhard Pearson, Duncan Murray, Anne Sherry, can't be with us this evening, Gabriel Traynor, Ken Henry, David Jones, and many others too numerous to mention. Colin Carter, who I see here this evening as well. And our current board members, Jodie Curry, John Nicholson, Karen Gibson, Mariki Bassani, Nicole Scarra and Rob Koska, and the dedicated staff of the Cape York Partnership Group, past and present. From the outset, we all have believed that good governance is the foundation upon which everything stands. If enduring problems are to be solved, they must be reframed and solutions built within structures that are accountable, strong, transparent, and culturally grounded. The balance between compliance and kinship, between financial accountability and belonging. As we look forward, we know the journey is far from complete. The headwinds remain strong. Politics shifts. Social media shouts, and misinformation spreads faster than the truth. Yet through it all, the work continues. The spirit endures. For what we are engaged in is not merely a set of programs or policies, it is, at its heart, an act of faith. Faith in the Australian people, faith in friendship, faith in Martin Luther King's oft-used phrase that the arc of the moral universe is long but bends towards justice. Whatever storms we have faced, and there have been many, Cape York has endured, adapted and remained true to its purpose. So when I look back, my own experience with Indigenous people, from Redfern in the 1980s to Cape York today, what I feel most profoundly is gratitude. Gratitude to the Indigenous people who have opened their lives to me. Gratitude for friendships that have lasted decades, and gratitude for the chance to play a very small part in something much larger than my everyday world. We have come a long way. There is still a long way to go. But if we keep walking side by side, I have no doubt we will get there.